In the later 18th century, two young women grew up together at Kenwood House near London. Such was the affection in which the two young women were held that their uncle, Lord Mansfield, commissioned a joint portrait of them from the accomplished Scottish portraitist, David Martin. Dido Belle and Lady Elizabeth Murray came into the care of Lord and Lady Mansfield when they were both very young. Elizabeth after the death of her mother, and Dido at the request of her father, Captain John Lindsay. David Martin's signature specialization was in the painting of layers of gauzy fabrics. A joint portrait offered the opportunity to mix and contrast many fabrics in the one image. The silk gown was still front-fastening and worn open over a matching petticoat. Long sleeves and bows at the centre front of the bodice were fashionable. Skirts with a puffed-up polonaise were popular. The shape was achieved by means of hidden tapes inside the gown which, when tied, lifted and puffed up the skirt. The gown bodice was often fastened with concealed hooks and eyes at the centre front, though it could also be closed with pins, lace, or ribbons. The matching petticoat was tied about the waist in such a way as to create gaps at the side for access to the pockets beneath. The pockets were an accessory rather than part of the dress and were tied on at the waist. Beneath them, another plain linen petticoat was worn. False rumps were the latest fashion for supporting the petticoats, creating a softly curving outline. Sometimes an additional petticoat of linen or silk was worn beneath the figure-moulding silk stays. In her portrait, Dido is wearing a silk satin wrapping gown. These garments first became a novelty fashion for fancy dress, known as the sultana and embellished with exotic fabrics. But they quickly became adopted as a relaxed form of dress in the privacy of the home and could be worn with or without stays. Perhaps Dido chose her mode of dress and the accessories she wore for the portrait, or perhaps it was the artist's choice. A sash was worn about the waist to hold the gown in place. Dido also wore a silk and gold beaded turban wound around her hair. Dido was born in England. Her mother, Maria Belle, was an enslaved African woman who had become the mistress of Captain Lindsay. Her mother's history remains uncertain, but Dido and Elizabeth were cousins and they were cared for, educated and loved equally by Lord and Lady Mansfield. Dido's outfit was completed with a black ostrich feather placed in her turban and a gauzy blue silk shawl over her arms. Although painted as an outdoor scene, the two young women would have sat for their portrait indoors and probably individually, apart from initial ideas for composition. Dido Belle, loved and respected by her uncle, Lord Chief Justice Mansfield, whose rulings in cases of slavery paved the way for abolition, may be more important than we can ever know. The portrait is a precious testimony to her life.